Nova, can you talk about what you're feeling like coming into this wrestling show here for Legacy 3 in Timmins?
I am super excited to be wrestling in Timmins for the first time. In the course of the year, I have shown up to Timmins alongside Tornado as his manager only and haven't had any ring time in the city of Timmins. So this is my very first debut in the ring. I was originally scheduled back in April for a match. Unfortunately, I had to cancel it due to my WWE tryouts. So the 19th of October, I'll be going against Crystal Moon at École Secondaire Catholique Thériault in Timmins.
Cool. And can you maybe talk to me about what it's like when you get out there in front of a crowd at a wrestling show like that? What you feel, the kind of energy and all that kind of thing.
It is such a rush. The adrenaline, the nervousness, the excitement, everything combined. It's unspeakable. I can't even describe how I feel. You have a little bit of stage fright, a little bit of excitement just to get out there in front of the crowd. You just got to remind yourself it's mind over matter, and just got to focus and do what you do best.
So So you said that you mentioned that you have been in Timmins before, but you were only manager ringside this time. So what kind of response are you expecting from the Timmins crowd here? Because it is going to be a pretty packed house at Terrio.
Yeah, École Secondaire Catholique Thériault is always a packed house every time we go. It's amazing. There's so much energy from the crowd. Over the course of the year, again, I've been a manager for Tornado, so I've let the crowd get to know me. And, they're excited. They're very eager to see me in the ring just to see what I can do. So now I could prove it to them.
Can you talk about maybe it's not everyone that decides to go into wrestling. So what was when did you know that it was kind of your maybe calling to go into it, or what was your inspiration to get into that kind of sport?
My inspiration to get into this actually is working 10 years in emergency services. And, every day I see people's lives change, mostly for the worse. So I've really come to, I sat down with myself one day during stretching after a workout in the gym. And, I was just thinking about the future and what it has for me, thinking that, tomorrow is never promised. Unfortunately, it's a realistic thing. So, what is on my bucket list? What's something I've always wanted to do, even just to try, that I may not be able, I maybe can't do it or I'm unable to. But what is something I've always wanted to try? Why not just give it that one shot? So that's exactly what I did. I didn't know where to start. Sudbury, I'm from Sudbury. Sudbury doesn't have a ring to train in. So I actually sent a Facebook message to the one person that I read in the local media, which is Tornado, who runs Rock Solid Wrestling. And that's how I got started. And the rest is history.
That's a pretty cool story. Can you talk about? You mentioned how you were in the gym and you kind of thought you were going through that entire thought process. Did you, once you got into it and you started to train for that kind of thing, did you really know that what you were going to be getting yourself into? That the hours. I'm assuming the hours of training are super intense, and it's a lot of hard work, right?
Yeah, absolutely not. I had no idea what it had in store for me. All I knew is what I watched on TV. The WWE, growing up watching WCW, ECW, and all that good stuff. That's all I knew. So that's what I thought it was. I didn't even know that independent wrestling existed. Indie wrestling, had no idea. And so I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. There's a lot of driving, a lot of kilometers, a lot of time dedicated, a lot of time away from your friends and family for little to no pay, honestly. And I do it because I love it. It's so much fun. I love the people I work with. I love the crowd, and I love being a good role model for the children.
That's awesome. You talked about ACW and WCW when you were watching. That's all you knew. That's kind of what you were watching. Was there any specific superstar or wrestler that maybe gave you that extra, motivation? Like, I want to be exactly that kind of person, or like I want to be sort of like this person if I do get into wrestling?
Yeah, if you're talking about historically, I've always been a fan of Jeff Hardy, and I love the acrobatics and everything that he does, and that has actually inspired me to enter into gymnastics. And I'm not too good at it, obviously, because it's not in my background, but it has inspired me to actually take that next step and learn how to flip and everything like that, because I would eventually absolutely love to do some flips off the top corner. As far as now, an inspiration for me is Ronda Rousey. I know she has very limited time in the WWE, but I have actually watched her in the UFC since day one, and I followed her. And you know what? She's such a strong female, and you don't have to dress sexy to be an inspiration for women everywhere, and to get that attention from guys. You know what? Just like Ronda Rousey, just be yourself. Just be a strong female role model, and I believe that's what's going to get you far in life.
So you're coming to Timmins, and you're going to be wrestling. You have a match scheduled. What kind of wrestling style would you say you have? Not to give away too much, because we
Yeah.
do want to give people a good show. But what would you say your style of wrestling is?
So I'm not too sure about labeling it, because I've never actually thought about giving it a name. But I believe that my athletics come from my athletic background, which is competitive volleyball and also horse racing. So when you see me in the ring, I love to do a lot of strength-based moves, and I love to do a lot of moves that involve just jumping and running and explosiveness.
So I guess we could say it's an explosive style of wrestling that you like to bring to the table when you get into the ring.
Absolutely. Again, I have a very big volleyball background, so plyometrics was a large part of my fitness background. So I love to do anything jumping and heights-wise. So I'm starting to work more on the top corner, but even just a lot of groundwork with regards to jumping and explosiveness.
So do you have a finisher that the Timmins crowd might be able to witness when October 19th comes around?
Well, they will witness it, because I will be executing that move on Crystal Moon. She will be getting the Black Hole Slam.
The Black Hole Slam, is that what it's called?
That's right.
So what can you maybe describe to me as good as much as you can what that move would look like if it were to be done?
I'm basically taking her for a ride. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, that sounds scary and super unpleasant. I'm glad I'm not in the ring with you when that's gonna happen. You've been to Timmins before. Can you talk about, what do you look forward to when you hear Timmins come to mind, and you're coming back up here for a show?
It's awesome. It's close to home, and that's where I want to wrestle. I have to drive from Sudbury almost every weekend down south for my shows, and I very rarely get to wrestle in the north. Like, this is my home. This is where I'm from. And, I would love nothing more than to have more shows out here. So, to be able to wrestle in Timmins it's an honor, because I'm a northern girl. And you know what? It's about time that, a woman from the north is able to, show her professional wrestling skills, because I don't know of anyone else other than Tornado that's around here. So,
you mentioned that you were at a WWE tryout. Was that recent?
April 2019.
Oh wow, wow. So can you talk about that experience? Maybe what maybe you ended up learning over there. What's something that, like, if a young girl or someone wanted to get into wrestling and wants to get to that level of professional wrestling, which is the WWE, what would you say you picked up from there that you can maybe pass on to them, but at the same time, like, to kind of like help them achieve that same goal that you're trying to achieve right now?
I would honestly tell them to be themselves, because you're not going to get anywhere in life trying to be like somebody else. And that's exactly what I saw firsthand at the WWE Performance Center in Orlando, is that they look for uniqueness. So, for example, we were 40 people total that got invited to go out and try out, 20 girls and 20 guys. Not one of these 20 women looked like me or I looked like them. And everybody looked so different, and everybody had a different wrestling style. Some weren't even wrestlers. Some were just freak athletes, honestly. They were CrossFit athletes. They competed in all these different games in the States. I can't even describe the amount of athleticism that they had other than wrestling, because some of them just didn't wrestle at all. Again, just be yourself, be unique, just have your own unique style, and that's what's going to set you apart from the others.
And I think this might be the last one, but it depends on what you answer here. But what has been, if you could say, the most positive thing you've gotten out of wrestling so far, and maybe something that's been extremely challenging? You mentioned a bit of traveling, but what's been a good thing, something great that's been great about wrestling, and then something that's maybe been a little tougher that came with wrestling?
I would say one of the greatest things about what I've learned so far in wrestling is just how strong I can be mentally and independently in this business. I spend a lot of time alone, whether it be traveling or, getting myself ready for the show, or, folding my merchandise and putting my merchandise, packing it up in my luggage and putting it in my vehicle. You spend a lot of time alone, and you really get to know yourself, and you really get to know your work ethic and how motivated you are just to do this exact thing. And so I guess I can say I've impressed myself on my work ethic and how much time and effort I've put into this, and the positive response I've gotten out of it. And I guess I would say the downside about that is that I am spending a lot of time away from my friends and family during this time. And, I'm really hoping it does pay off in the end. But, again, like I said, tomorrow isn't promised. And this is something that I've always wanted to try. And I'm just going to ride the wave and do it as long as I can, because this is what makes me happy.
So 10 more days before you step into the squared circle in Timmins for Legacy 3. Talk about maybe what's that day going to be like, when Wrestling Day comes around. What is going to be the preparation? What's going to be the mental state of mind? Like, what's your Wrestling Day routine, I guess you can say?
I'm going to try and get as much sleep as I can, because that's how I can function. And you know what? It's just eating healthy, and it's hard to eat healthy during travels, but I am going to be packing a lunch, and myself and Tornado are most likely going to be driving down from Sudbury to Timmins, and we'll be arriving at École Secondaire Catholique Thériault. I'll be there probably a couple hours before, just mentally preparing myself. Of course, I've got my merchandise with me. I'm going to be spending some time alone, I guess, going over my talents, going over my craft, and thinking about what I want to bring to the table that evening. And hopefully I can just show it for the crowd and, prove myself and show my skills and abilities to them.
Cool. So there you go. So that was Nova, everyone, and she will be here in Timmins for Legacy 3 come October 19th at École Secondaire Catholique Thériault. So yeah, make sure you won't want to miss it, because word is she's going to be sending her opponent for a ride. So thanks for taking the time, Nova.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.